Hi everyone, I'm Hillary Ellers and I am coming to you through Lightworks Studio, my little business. Um, these are what I am presenting now are metaphysical lessons that are based on 54 years of my uh, investigation into metaphysics and consciousness. I hope that you will enjoy the lessons. I hope they will be meaningful to you. If you want to make a donation, after and below the video, you'll see how to do that. And one more thing, my little doggie, Mamie, is in the room and she is not well. And she's just used to being right by me, so I don't want to cause her more anxiety by not being here. And she may cough. So please forgive her if she does. She's a great little girl. So today I am picking up on the last lesson that we recorded. And I really recommend you watch lesson 3 before you watch this lesson. This lesson will be much easier to understand if you do that. So we're going to be talking about frequency and vibration. In our last lesson, I'll just say a few simple things to recap some of that. We were talking about spirit residing in the stillness in God, in the Creator, before it came into activity and movement. And so you can think of this as, in a way, the birth of spirit into the world, into not the earth yet at that time when it's first born, but spirit is born from the quiet stillness, the darkness, into light, into activity and movement. So it moves from the divine feminine, which is that quiet place, into the divine masculine. And I want you to think of this not as something that happened, but think of it as what happened to you, that it's your history. This is an experience you had, and it's layered way, 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 way back in your memory. And so today we're going to be exposing a part of yourself to you that you don't know about yet. So when you were residing in the quiet stillness within the Creator, you were, in a sense, born. And your spiritual birth had to do with what is metaphorically called the breath of God. And that is a breathing out that the Creator did. And lots of little sparks of life and light and soul came out with that breath. And you were in one of those groups. Eons and eons and eons of time ago. It would be amazing if we tried to translate it into years, because it just wouldn't click. You know, it's just so far and so big. Now, when you came out of the Creator and out of the stillness, you entered into an ocean of energy. And that energy filled everything. Everything was energy. And from the point of the Creator, the energy that you entered into was very fine and light, and it was very illuminated. And in your journey, you moved through many layers of energy, and we'll be talking about that today. You moved from that lightness of being, that very fine and rarefied energy, more and more down, and down doesn't mean anything here, it's just a way to describe this. You move down layers of energy that are dimensions, that are planes. There are different names for these layers, but they're worlds within themselves. And you move through these, coming into denser and denser energy as you move toward the physical dimension. And as a human, the high point would be that very rarefied energy just as you stepped out of the stillness into movement and activity. And the low point in the spectrum of these layers is the physical plane. So as humans, that's the lowest that we go, quote unquote, down. Each layer is unique. Each layer has its own personality. It has its own attributes. And as you come down through these layers, you learn more and more about yourself. Each layer presents a part of you to yourself. All the energy is really the same, and the difference in what defines these different dimensions is the speed or the frequency of the vibration of the energy. All the energy is the same, except for one thing: the speed or the frequency through which it's vibrating. And somehow those different speeds or frequency that the energy moves in creates different phenomena or different effects. So each dimension or layer has its own distinct properties. As you go through these, the shorter wavelengths are faster, and they are related more to those finer, higher, so to speak, layers. The longer wavelengths are slower, and they relate more to the more dense energies. Your brain waves vibrate within these energies of each layer. So when you are in the physical plane, the physical energy, the way it is vibrating, your brain vibrates with this physicalness. And when you meditate or you go into any kind of altered state, even daydreaming puts you there, you actually in consciousness leave the physical vibration, and your consciousness moves into one of these higher frequencies. We'll talk a little about that also more in this lesson today. But remember, this is such an important point. These planes or layers, these different dimensions are not locations. They are states of consciousness. And so you're not in, so to speak, a place. You are in a type of consciousness. Um, Color relates to this. Think of color and all the colors of the visible spectrum, and all the energy of color is the same. The only difference is how it's vibrating. So red to violet, whatever, blue to green, they're all the same energy, but they're moving at different speeds. And that actually, those different speeds actually creates the phenomena of color. Just as that is true, the dimensions are like that. They're all the same energy, but because they're vibrating differently, then they take on different properties, and color aligns with these different dimensions. So remember that, again, what we're really talking about is the journey of the soul. We're talking about your journey from your birth, your spiritual birth, down as you came into the physical dimension, and what you went through, what you personally experienced. I think it's exciting to even think about, our journeys in this way. Now, let's talk about the dimensions. What are they? How can we define them? And remember, they're exactly the same except for the speed of their frequency. And so there are definite beginning points and ending points to each dimension. For instance, in the physical, regarding light, light moves from infrared to ultraviolet at the high point, infrared at the low point. And so there's actually, in the physical dimension, a kind of measurable band of energy. Science doesn't know enough yet about these other dimensions to measure them, although it's interesting. Some of the current theories about creation, and even just about the state of reality, is suggesting that there is more than one dimension, that it's not just the physical. A lot of us just walk around feeling like this is it, and it's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day, into the mundane, and there's nothing wrong with being in touch with the mundane and taking part in it fully. And yet, don't forget that there are all these other layers of reality. So, let's start with the finest energy and talk about the layers. There is pure divinity, which, in my way of talking, when I say pure divinity, it's all divinity. And it's all pure divinity. But pure divinity in this instance means the stillness, the quietness, and it's said that when you are in that state, you are fully content and fulfilled. You have no sense of needing anything beyond what you have. And I feel like when we meditate, we touch that often. We touch that feeling of contentment, and all of our needs are met, and we feel really good. I know for a lot of us, myself included, a lot of times when I'm meditating, it's really hard to come back. It's like, I don't want to leave this. It's so nice, So we have pure divinity. Then we are born spiritually, and we are sent out into activity, light. We're sent out really into chaos. And we work our way through. We weave our way through each of these dimensions. The next dimension is just a change of frequency. So at some point when, as the metaphor says, God breathes out and breathes us out, there's a change of frequency from the stillness to the activity. And we move into what is considered to be the spiritual dimension. And the spiritual dimension is hard to describe. It relates more to the levels of meaning, the levels of purpose, the levels of a sense of purpose or meaning. It relates to very large realms of realization. And we really don't have language to describe those. I feel that as the human race becomes more evolved, that we'll begin to develop language that will describe better and better all these different dimensions. And these other worlds will begin to have language for them. When I was learning to do psychic readings or intuitive readings, I really like the word intuitive better than psychic. Psychic to me sort of suggests, the little house on the side of the road with the palm out front, and psychic readings, which I guess I obviously must have some prejudice about that. But my feeling is that intuition describes better what I do. I'm using my intuition. All right, so when we are coming down these layers from the spiritual, from that level in which we're seeking and touching meaning and purpose and huge ideas we can't even describe, we drop down into an even heavier, thicker, denser level. And those levels we drop down into are mental. This is where our thinking is anchored. And the higher of the mental levels is abstract thinking. The lower frequency of the mental levels is concrete thinking. And so some people do more abstract thinking, some people less. But as you develop as a soul, you'll use both of those levels, and you'll be very, very much involved in abstract ideas and concepts. Now, let's talk about color. Now, I have to think about it because I have to think in reverse order. Maybe I'll talk about color at the end because I can go up from, it'll be easier for me to think of it and say it correctly. But color vibrates on each of these levels. Like, what I mean by that is the frequency of the level is the same as the frequency of certain colors. And if you want to get into these dimensions, one way to do it is to focus on the color that vibrates with that dimension. Okay, so we move down from the mental levels and we move into the emotional levels, the feeling levels. And there is a higher feeling level and a lower feeling level. And these feeling levels are usually called astral levels. Although, be careful because names are so interchangeable. Different systems use different names for the same thing, or they use a name that one system appoints to be this level, and over here the same name might be a different level. So don't be too caught up in what the levels are called. Just know that they exist, that they are different from each other, and that they're different phenomena associated with each one. And it's sort of safer to just say spiritual, mental, and emotional or feeling levels, and not, you don't have to give them a metaphysical name, so to speak. In the emotional levels, these levels align with what people believe about heaven and hell. The upper emotional level is usually literally the dimension that people go to after they pass away, after they die. Although some people move in above that level. If they're a very developed soul, according to metaphysical philosophy, and I totally believe this, I believe it so strongly, there's no hell. Newsflash, you do not have to worry, there is no hell. And in fact, hell is something that is not at all assigned to what people experience after death. People are in hell just as much, a lot of people, when they are physically alive. And what they're experiencing is so difficult or painful that they are in their own personal hell. But know this, that there is no place that you are ever sent as punishment. In fact, in the whole system of creation, I do not believe that there is any punishment for anything. That our Creator is not a punishing Creator. And I just, again, feel this so strongly. It bothers me that doctrines are taught that scare people, that make people afraid. All these teachings about hell, they make people afraid of dying. And people become afraid of what they think of as dark forces or evil, all of that. And you have nothing to be afraid of, nothing. There is no force ever stronger than you are. You never will ever encounter a force stronger than yourself. And there's nothing to be afraid of. Your own energy is your protection. And I certainly don't mean that everyone is well-intended. I don't think they are. Some people are not well-intended. And you might think of those people as evil. And yet know this, that and this is a subject for another lesson, but what we call evil is really in cooperation with what we call good. And the positive and negative energies, and here when I say negative, I don't mean an electrical charge, I mean a type of energy that is dark, or here again, saying dark like it's a bad thing. Um, but those energies of good and evil actually cooperate with each other. They actually are both necessary, just as an artist needs dark pigment to define a painting. That the darker pigments define depth and a recess. And it's very important. An artist could not paint any form without those darker energies, those darker colors. So when we talk about hell, don't be afraid. You know, when people threaten you that you'll go to hell if you don't A, B, or C, it's just not true. I mean, it's a very prevalent teaching, and it's just not true. I'll be so glad when humanity gets that and we feel more freed up to be ourselves, to be, live in the innocence we actually have. Imagine if you've never been taught about evil, I mean, or bad, or how bad you are. Matthew Fox is a Catholic priest. I really don't know if he's still in the church or not. He may have left the Catholic Church. But he has a doctrine, a teaching. Instead of original sin, which we've all been, most of us anyway, in the West, most of us have been indoctrinated to believe literally that we were born in sin, that we're sinful and all this. Matthew Fox has a doctrine or a teaching that talks not about original sin, he talks about original blessing. That we're born in original blessing, and that there's an innocence we hold. And it's such a different story, and I believe it. And the church became very angry with him when he brought this doctrine forward, and he was more or less sentenced, I guess, to silence. And he wasn't allowed to speak publicly. I don't know if he could talk at all. I don't know what that entailed, to be sentenced to silence. But he was silenced by the church and threatened. And it's very sad to me, a lot of the teachings of the church, not just the Catholic Church, but the church in general. And I'm not against church. Church has a very important role in our culture and in the lives of people, many people. And also, church can emphasize the negative. It gives power somehow to the negative. And I want you to begin to really start to take those heavy chains off of yourself, to free yourself up. And you'll be surprised if you stop worrying about, are you doing something right? You know, is this the right way? It's all this thinking we have that somehow we're going to make a mistake, we're going to go the wrong way, we're going to foul up. And I just want you to know that you're here with total freedom to experiment, to learn everything you can about being human and what it means to be a human. And that also means that, you know, we've been victims and we've been perpetrators, because we're learning all the energies. We're learning both sides of everything. And there will be a time that you will come to, if you're not already there, when you stop being in judgment about that. That you just understand that, first of all, everyone is doing the best that they know how to do. And that we are here to experiment. And we're going to be learning about everything about humanness. And that is as it should be. So that helps us with hell if we really, can get that. We don't have to be afraid about it. And know that, again, our Creator does not punish us. What people perceive as punishment has to do with the energy that they sent out into the world that has finally come back around to them, and it has come back into their lives. It's like a big boomerang. I was teaching you, I think maybe in the last lesson, that energy moves in curved lines and it forms a circle. And whatever you put out into life comes back to you. And it's not punishment. It's just physics. It's a type of how energy works. I do think that it promotes our learning and our inner development when we encounter what we have created. Sooner or later, we begin to learn how to create something that is better. One of my friends is my housekeeper, and she's the cutest thing. She's a young woman, and she's just a doll. I've known her since she was a baby, and I used to go and watch her in her crib. She was the daughter of a dear friend of mine. So she's always saying these tremendously wise things. They just pop out of her mouth. So the other day she said, do better for yourself. And I thought, yes, that's what it's about. And I think that what that means is that the more we live, the more we learn. We begin to learn that our own pain is self-created, that it's something that has returned to us, that we're working through, and we can do better by ourselves and for ourselves. And we begin to learn how to create better lives. So do better by yourself. I think that's a great motto. Now, heaven. What about heaven? If there's no hell, is there heaven? Not really. One of my favorite songs is it called Imagine by, oh my God, oh wow, now I'm super embarrassed. John Lennon. I know his name, just had a senior moment there. Okay, John Lennon. I think it's called Imagine. Yeah, it's one of my ultra favorite songs. And one of the things this song says is, imagine there's no heaven. Imagine there's no hell. Just living for the moment. And what I believe is that sooner or later we learn to live positive lives. We learn to do positive things because it feels good. And it's not about a reward. It's, people have a saying, what is it, earn stars in your crown or something, and, there's this insinuation that if you live a positive life, you're going to be in heaven and you're going to get all these rewards. And what I want to say is that the reward for doing good is just simply feeling good and being happier. And you don't have to wait to go to heaven. You can be in heaven right now. It's really a choice. And so there are, I think, places that people gravitate to when they die. And you might think of that as heaven. But it's not really about a reward. It's simply this higher emotional dimension. And most people, when they pass over and they die, they go to this dimension of the higher emotional level. And I think a lot of people are over there in that dimension thinking they've died and they've gone to heaven. Well, they know they're not in hell. So I guess they feel they're in heaven. And I believe there's a Baptist heaven and a Catholic heaven, and, people gravitate to groups that they identify with. And many people say that after you pass over, you encounter what you expect. And that what you expect creates your experience. And that may be. It may be true, because I do believe people cluster in little groups just like they did when they were alive. And they feel they've made it, to the right place or whatever. Now, there's something that happens here in these emotional levels, and they're usually called astral levels in most systems. There's a shift of energy between the lower astral and the upper astral. And in metaphysical terms, this is called the bridge of Maya, M-A-Y-A. And Maya translated means illusion. So there's a change of energy here between the lower and upper emotional levels, and we could call it the bridge of illusion. And what this means is that below the bridge of illusion, things can be different than they seem. Like people can fool other people. People can con other people. People can, misrepresent themselves. And it is said that above the bridge of Maya, that this isn't possible. It's not possible to portray yourself as different than you are. So however you are, it shows. Edgar Cayce, the great mystic, teacher, healer, said that when people develop enough, when the human race is developed enough, we won't be able to lie to each other, because we'll be able to see people's auras, and when they lie, it will show up immediately in their aura, and people will go, that's not true. We know that's not true. So that has all to do with, or a lot to do with, this whole thing about below the bridge of Maya, you can lie sometimes and get away with it. Of course, sooner or later it'll come back to you somehow. But above the bridge of Maya, you can still lie, but you won't get away with it. It will be visible. Yeah. Now, as we come on down into denser and denser energies, well, let me say one more thing about the astral levels. They're very important. All of them, all the levels are important. Probably no level's more important than any other. But as we come down into the lower astral, uh, I think of that level as a level of unprocessed feelings and emotions. And what I mean by that is feelings and emotions that you haven't worked out, that you don't know what to do with. They could be confused feelings, they could be painful feelings, uh, but they're feelings that it's sort of like an unfinished sentence. It's sort of dangling and it isn't completed. And so there usually is pain associated. There usually is pain associated with feelings that aren't completed. And so that also relates to the lower astral often as a region of pain. Yeah. Okay, now, if we drop down even further, we come into what is basically called the etheric level. And it's E-T-H, gosh, I hope I can spell it right, E-T-H-E-R-I-C. I'm a very poor speller. So, when I spell a word, take it with caution. You better check it out. But the etheric level is the closest level to the physical body and to the physical dimension. The etheric level is a level of vitality. It's a level of sensation, and that's what's really important about it. Um, we think sensation is seated in the physical body, but it isn't. It's actually in the etheric body. So if we're talking chakras, sensation is not in your root chakra, it's in your navel chakra. And your sexuality actually is not in your root chakra, it's in your navel chakra. That's where you're going to have sensation from, pain and pleasure. Also, the amount of just pure life force you have shows up in the etheric level. Anyone who has physical sight can see the etheric part of your aura. It's kind of smoky looking. I think it looks like sort of condensed cigarette smoke. Not a very pleasant thought, but anyway, it's sort of light, maybe almost a little silvery or pale, and it's smoky looking, and the etheric part of the aura will be closest to the body, and it will be, depending on how vital you are. The more vitality you have, the brighter your etheric aura will be, and the thicker. It'll be thicker and brighter if you have more vitality, better health. Then one way to see it, if you want to play around with it or practice or whatever, is look at someone and either focus in front of them or behind them. So look at someone and throw your eyes out of balance. And when you do that, it will help you see this etheric energy. And you'll see it like around the body of the person you're looking at. And it's so, these kinds of things are so interesting because you can experience them and not realize you're experiencing them. It's like you may be seeing etheric auras and not realize it. And, you know, this is another story about Edgar Casey, but I'll tell it again when I give the lesson on auras, so bear with me when I repeat my stories. You know, I just have a number of them, and I have to pull them out of the grab bag. So one time, Edgar Casey was at a conference, and he went to get on an elevator, and it was full of people. You know, it was in a hotel where the conference was happening. And the elevator was, I guess, really rather crowded. And he went to step on the elevator, and he just had this feeling, no, I'll wait for the next elevator. And I don't know that he even analyzed what he was feeling. He just had this feeling, wait. So he pulled back and waited, and the elevator he did not get on went up to umpty-ump floor, and the cable broke. This is a true story. The cable broke, and that elevator crashed. It was at a time when elevators had pulleys or something different than they do now. But every person on the elevator died. And it was very disturbing to him. And he thought, why didn't I get on the elevator? What happened? And when he really analyzed it and he stepped back and looked at it, what he realized is that he personally always saw people's auras. It was just how his vision worked. If he met you, he could see your aura. And he realized that he saw no auras from any of the people on that elevator. And there was something in him that went, this isn't right, don't do it. And he stepped back. And evidently, the people had already entered the death process, even though they were still in their bodies. They hadn't left their bodies yet. And I've had some experiences in which I encountered some folks that were about to die, and I mean, their energy was so different than it normally was. And one time I had a very dear friend, a good friend, and I hadn't seen him in a while, and I encountered him. And I was so happy to see him, and I thought, oh, good, you know. And I walked up to him to talk, and I just couldn't talk to him. It was like he wasn't open or something. It wasn't that he was being mean or he didn't say anything like go away or leave me alone or anything, but his energy wasn't open. And I just, like, I couldn't really connect. And it was, I noticed it, I realized it, and it was very confusing to me. Well, that very night he died. He died. He drove his car, it was an accident, and he drove his car off a seawall in a heavy storm, and he couldn't see the boundary, you know, and he just, he drowned. And I've thought about that so many times, that he must have already started his death process when I encountered him, because his energy was, boy, not at all like it normally would be. So, pardon me. the etheric does one more thing. It's a very important hookup. It is the important hookup between the physical body and all the other higher bodies, all the other levels. And so if anything is not right within the etheric level, it will affect your connection to all your other levels. And it's said that the color of mental problems, is a sort of dirty, kind of rusty brown color. And that's one of the colors that the etheric body can be. It can have, if this hookup isn't working correctly, it can cause mental problems, even though it's not the mental level. It's such an important link or hookup. So this is helping you realize that when you were born spiritually, you were, I think, absolutely happy. That's my theory. I believe you were, and we were. I was too. We were all absolutely happy. Sort of remember Babe in the movie Babe, and it was la la la, you know, Babe was always happy. I remember it was so cute with Babe staring down the rifle, you know, the rifle, the farmer was pointing the rifle at Babe, and Babe was looking at the rifle, just la la la, you know. Babe didn't even know, you know, to be afraid. Well, I feel when we were born spiritually, that was our state of being, that innocence, that happiness, that willingness to explore, to find out about life. And we went through all these experiences. And when we came through each of these dimensions, we got in touch with that part of ourselves. Like when we were born spiritually, we had everything, but we weren't aware of it. So when we come down, and it's called the involutional arc, when we're coming from divinity to physicalness, and we're lowering our vibration, we find out about all these parts of ourselves that we didn't know about. We find out about our spiritualness. Is that a word? Whatever, I'm creating it. We find out about our mentality, our mental self. We find out about our feeling self. We find out about sensation and energy, pure energy. And we didn't know about that at first. We had it, but just didn't know about it. So we encounter ourselves and learn about ourselves, but it is said to be on a subconscious level. And that means that it's not fully accessible to us. I mean, we can get into it, but it's not like conscious knowledge. It's different. It's more buried. It's there, but it's buried. So as we come down the involutional arc and we build this subconscious self-knowledge, we also build a body on every level. And when we build the body, it's built out of the substance of each of these levels. Like our physical body is built out of physical substance, you know, like literal, like dust and dirt and whatever. Here we are. So the body we have that we build and create on each level is like that. It's built out of whatever that level is made up of. The body we build gives us an opportunity to be active on that level and to interact. Like, think, if you didn't have a physical body, it would be very difficult to interact with the physical dimension. I mean, some people can do it amazingly. My dad was, he is not alive. My father was very intuitive. Really, I mean, he saw spirit. He would see people and things in spirit. And things would happen around him, like psychokinetic stuff. My son, I have a son who has all kinds of psychokinetic energy. My son used to walk by phones and they would fly off the base. You know, if they were sitting in the base, they'd just fly off of it. Things like that would happen. I've had some of that happen to me also. But my dad was really, he really had, you know, all this awareness, and he could touch energies and work with them without even, again, it was more subconscious. And my son too. My son didn't make the phone fly off the base. It would just happen. So after we hit the physical, what then? That's not the end of the journey. You may have realized that. Well, get this. We each turn around and go right back up. We start, once we have our full experience of being human, and we've been human as much as we need to be to learn about ourselves, then we start moving up the ladder of these levels. And instead of coming down into denser and denser dimensions, we start moving up into more rarefied, finer dimensions, lighter dimensions. And on the trip up, we consciously learn about ourselves. So since we've hit the physical, I mean, our journey up started the moment we got into a physical body. And so we're all learning about these higher, finer frequencies within us. Even though, as I said earlier, a lot of people don't really know about anything but the physical. A lot of people don't believe in anything except the physical. And even if that's true for them, they will keep on moving up and growing. And I'm always sort of amused when people don't believe in life after death. And I always think, boy, I'd love to be there when they die and see them in terms of how surprised they'll be. And one of my friends just recently died, and he didn't believe in life after death. And I told him, I said, well, you're going to be surprised. And yeah, I'd love to talk to him and find out how he took everything, you know, like to realize he was still alive or he was still conscious. That's really the way to say it. So you will eventually merge back into the body of God that is in the quietness and stillness. When you return with more light. You're larger. Your energy has grown, and you have gathered more light. And as you join the Creator, you bring growth to the Creator. So in my belief, our our God is, we are growing. Also, our God is growing. That God is not stagnant. And what's really true, and this is one of those mind things like that can freak out your mind, but God is complete, we're complete, we're everything we can be, and yet we can grow. And I don't understand that. That's one of those things that I believe, at least I believe it. But I don't get it. So I hope that, as we've gone through these ideas, that they will help you appreciate yourself, to, realize, be in awe of yourself. You're an amazing, amazing being. You have already been through so many experiences, and you have been on your journey for such a long, long time. There's so much more to you than you realize. And one of the things I feel that can begin to come to you as you study metaphysics is how expansive you are. What a large soul you are. How much experience you've already had that's just mind-boggling. So I hope that these ideas will stimulate you not only to just think about them and think about yourself, but to have greater awe regarding who you are. And in a way, I feel that has to do with valuing who you are. Like really appreciating who you are. So thank you, and that's the end of our lesson. And so let us enter into a guided meditation. And begin by just doing whatever you need to do to be comfortable physically. You might want to stand up, you might want to walk a moment, or you might want to stretch, adjust your clothing, you might want to scratch, clear your throat, cough, whatever. Anything you need to do to be comfortable, let yourself do it. And while we're meditating, you still can do whatever you need to do to stay comfortable. If you want to get in the floor and lay down, do that. If it's in the middle of the meditation and it hits you that you really need to do A, B, or C, do it. It will not pull you out of your meditating. So know that. And if there's any sound that we hear, just let it come in and allow it to be part of the meditation. It's like life unfolding around you. And it's perfectly all right. You are part of life. Life is part of you. And so any sound we hear is just life. I'm laughing because one of my cats is squeaking the glass by doing her paws on it. She wants to come in here. Oh, look at her. Maybe she'll figure out she can go around the other way, or maybe, thank you, one of my friends here is going to let her in to our room. She's at a French door and she's, squeaking the glass. There she goes. That's funny, just as we were talking about sounds. Although that wasn't real loud, but... All right, so you do whatever you need to do now to be comfortable and simply begin to pay attention to your breath. Begin now to simply focus on your breath. And just feel yourself breathing. And in this moment, feel how good it feels to breathe. Every incoming breath is bringing a soothing wave of relaxation through your entire body. Every outgoing breath is carrying with it all of the tension, every incoming breath is bringing a soothing wave of relaxation through your entire body. In this moment, as you are very relaxed, find yourself able to be aware of things you normally might not have access to. In this moment of greater awareness, allow yourself to perceive your largeness of being. Imagine that you are able to be aware of how large your energy is. Perceive the beauty and majesty of your energy, far greater than you've realized. How ancient you are and how large. And just feel the sacred quality of your history as a soul. And take that into your heart. And give thanks for your very being. Now gradually begin to return to your surface level of consciousness. And return holding all of your experience. Return now to your surface level of consciousness and find yourself safely entering your physical body again, anchoring yourself. Return now to your surface level of consciousness and anchor yourself back in your body. And as you do, you might begin to stretch or wiggle or rub your legs, rub your face. And when you are back, just open your eyes and celebrate yourself. How wonderful. What a great creation you are. Thank you.